Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UK Games Expo here at the NEC in the UK. We are back with round 7 of the Digimon TCG Regional, and it may or may not be the last round. This is where things get complicated. We've currently got 3 players at 6-0. As soon as we have 1 player on X-0, the tournament will be over. That could happen this round. It would take the 2 X&Os playing each other to not tie, and the X&O who has been paired down to lose, or it would take the player paired down to win while the 2 X&Os playing each other tied. If either of those things happen, the tournament is over, we are done. Otherwise, there is going to be a round 8, so things are going to be kind of interesting. And speaking of interesting, we've got some interesting decks. Now, one player is playing a deck with which we are very familiar. It's Yellow Hybrid. But then we've got a purple deck here, which we got a bit of Lilithmon. We've got a bit of Lilithmon going on here. We've got a bit of Creepymon going on here. We've got lots of interesting things happening, and that is rather lovely. So I think we are pretty much ready to go. We are ready to go. So we've got Francis Denton and Jake Holt. So Francis Denton has been paired down. Quite simply, he is one of the 3 people remaining that can win this tournament. There are 2 ways to do that. Either Francis wins this round while both the X and O's tie, or Francis wins this round and the next round and wins at 8-0. So that's essentially where we're going. So we do see Jake playing that deck with which we are so familiar at this stage, that yellow hybrid deck. We've got Salamon, we've got a Zoe Oramoto, and we are off. Francis here is playing a deck with which we are far less familiar. It's one we haven't seen yet, but it is sitting at 6-0, so I think it's fair to say it is legit. So we've got an Ogremon coming down here. And we've got a Tsukaimon sitting there in the active position. And this is looking very nice indeed. We've got a nice little setup going on. So we do see Eismon Scatter Mode hitting the trash. And then we see the yellow deck doing what the yellow deck does. So that Ogremon, when you are attacking, you can trash a card in your hand to get yourself security attack +1. It's not doing much at the moment, but hopefully in the future it will. Speaking of which, we do see it now coming out into the active. So potentially gives itself security attack +1. It only has 5,000 power, so it's not exactly guaranteed to survive, but it's a nice thought that it might. Now, we do see coming down here a Calling from the Darkness. You get to delete 1 of your Digimon and then put up to 2 purple Digimon from your trash to your hand. Ogremon gets deleted there. Does not actually have a deletion skill, but we've got some things going on here. And, of course, there was the Gabumon underneath it here, which has... Oh, we got a pre-release card. That's rather nice. And, yeah... So that Gabumon did have a deletion skill, draw 2 cards and trash a card from your hand. So we've got an Eismon Scatter Mode coming out in the active here, and we do see a Patamon coming down from Jake. Already got a couple of Tamers out as we would expect. There's another Tamer, there's a Zoe Oramoto there. And I should say Eismon Scatter Mode has a nice deletion skill as well. On deletion, draw 3, then trash 2 cards. So there's lots of trashing, lots of drawing, but of course, like I said, you're building up to that Lilithmon, and that Lilithmon is going to want you to have all those purple options in the trash. But we'll hopefully get to that later. So now we see a Demi Meramon coming down. We see another one of those Gabumon with that nice deletion skill. Getting a bit of deja vu, quite frankly. And I'll be honest with you, Jake's deck is looking quite nice. The setup's looking quite nice. Francis is doing all right, but really, building up your trash is all well and good. And it's absolutely something these purple decks want to do. You've just got to make sure you use them. That's important. So Eismon Scatter Mode does attack into the trash, gives a free Tamer. Of course, all the Tamers have that skill that lets you play it for free, which is lovely. But it is kind of a little bit mean to your opponent. You keep playing them for free. Now, we do see a Lilithmon coming down here. That purple memory boost does search it out. Are we going to see Lilithmon actually come into play? When you Digivolve, if you've got 10 or more cards in your trash, you get 2 purple option cards back. And once per turn, when you use an option card, you gain 2 memory. So really playing around with lots of option cards. We've seen Lilithmon Loop in the past be a ridiculous deck. It's not like it was in that regard, but this isn't a pure Lilithmon deck. You've got a couple Lilithmon, a couple Creepymon, there's a Loosemon Chaos mode in here. There's lots of different things we can do and be playing around with. Lots of options, so to speak, literally and figuratively. So we did see Jet Silvermon coming down. That did get a little bit of recovery going on there. And we do see Cody Hina. And that puts back to Francis' turn with 1 memory. We see this a lot from players trying to pass a turn with as little memory as physically possible. Trying to give your opponent exactly 1 memory is always a good thing. Against some decks, you know, Jake right now can weather that. There's so many tamers. You're going to be just gaining memory all the time. But against decks like Francis, who isn't doing that, it does give you some really nice options to potentially, you know, try and hamstring your opponent, not give them enough memory to actually do anything with. So we do see a Cerberusmon coming down here. So building up there, could we see the level 6? No, not quite yet. But we do see another Cerberusmon. So we've got Cerberusmon there. On deletion, you draw 2 cards and then trash 1. And then you've got the Cerberusmon Werewolf mode that does actually have Rush. And then we're looking at all the cards in the trash, trying to figure out if it's worth it yet. So we do play 1 more option card. We play that Jack Raid. We'll see a second Jack Raid. Gain a little bit of memory. And now we see that Lilithmon does come down. Doesn't have to pass a turn in order to do so. So Lilithmon is going to be able to grab those 2 purple option cards back and then, you know, gain 2 memory every time an option card is played. And it's, you know, still an 11,000 power Digimon. There's a lot of good you can do here. So seems like just got 2 Jack Raid back. That seems to be the play here. Just, you know, going for the pair of those. For every 10 cards in your trash, you gain a memory. So there's your Eismon Scatter mode coming down. And we see an Analog Boy hitting the field. Analog Boy, of course, we see in a whole bunch of decks. It's becoming quite popular. It's that one, real top 3 cards of your deck, add a Digimon to your hand, trash the rest. And of course, this is the deck where you want to be building up your trash. So yeah, that's not bad. And Francis is doing a pretty good job getting cards in the trash there. But Jake's deck is doing what Jake's deck wants to do. We've still got 5 security remaining compared to Francis's, I want to say 4. We've got Jet Silphimon out. Here comes a Rapidmon. It's not going to quite delete it yet, but it will be able to. So we've got both Cody Hina and Tiga Takaishi and Kari Kamiya. That can do minus power. You don't need the TK and carry. We just need the Cody Hina. And Rapidmon is actually allowed to attack into it. And that's the thing. Rapidmon between the power and the attack is 11,000. So use one of a tamer and then all of a sudden you've actually gone and got deletion. It's sneaky hard to keep level 6s on the board against this yellow hybrid deck, which is really not supposed to be the point. So, does look like we've got a Cerberusmon hitting the field here again. And that Cerberusmon Werewolf mode does have Russian on play. You can delete one of your Cerberusmon to gain 9 memory, if you wish. Always quite nice for rushing in that regard. And what have we got here? So, looks like we are deleting that. So we can play that Cerberusmon essentially for free. Play it as a 9 cost, but delete a Cerberusmon. So it kind of evens out quite nicely. And now there's lots of cards in the trash, which is where Francis wants to be. It makes Jack Raid better. It makes Lilithmon better. And of course, you can Digivolve up into Lilithmon, and that would be rather nice. So, it's still not a huge amount on Francis' side of the board. You know, you got your Cerberusmon Werewolf mode, which is nice. But What else have you got after that? You got a Gabumon potentially coming out. Be nice to build up a little bit more going on here. So we do see an attack into the Rapidmon. Do remember we've got Armor Purge there, which means that although Rapidmon goes away, the Digimon under it stay around very nicely, which is quite nice. We then see Jack Raid coming down. Of course, Lilithmon no longer on the board, so you won't get the extra 2 memory. But we do see an Ogremon being played here. So this will work. This will work quite nicely. That is the one from BT6. Trash a card in your hand. Delete an opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. That's an on-play skill. So now we see a Phantomon fall down mode coming. That lovely alternate art does give you a recovery. And, you know, just gives you a big level 6 to be swinging with. And is that what we're going to see here? Yeah, no, we're just going to swing straight into the Cerberusmon. And I kind of like this because it means that Francis isn't going to go into something like a Lilithmon potentially next turn. You know, you're not going after the security, but you're making your opponent really work to get much of a setup, and that is absolutely what we're looking to do. I should mention we have got eyes on the other game, the 2 6-0s playing. They are both players that have been on stream so far, so hopefully we'll be able to tell you what happened in that game as well when we have some kind of result. So, we see a Witchmon, I believe that is, coming down here, which is always fun. That is the one, I believe, on play, return a purple level 5 or lower Digimon from your trash to your hand. Of course, it wasn't played, it was Digivolved, and it is a security card, but it didn't come out as a security. It's just been Digivolved up. So we do have a result from the other game. There was a winner in the other game. That is to say that one of the 6-0s has gone to 7-0, which means that if Francis loses this game or ties, the tournament's over. If Francis wins this game, we are going to a round 8. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys whether you're cheering for another round or not. But that's where we are at the moment. We saw, I believe it was David Hubbard, take a 2-0 victory in the other game. And if I remember correctly, David Hubbard is playing Imperial Dramon. We did see that in a previous round. So as it stands, David's got an interesting wait because maybe he's won the tournament and maybe he hasn't, which is kind of a weird quirk of having this kind of tournament. Now, we have seen an Eismon hit the field. You can actually play it for free if it gets trashed from your hand and there's an Eismon scatter mode in your trash. And it's got an extra 2,000 power for each Eismon scatter mode in your trash. So we do see another analog boy coming out here, letting you look and potentially grab a Digimon there, trash the other 2. Oh, and Francis doesn't have much left, but obviously this is a deck that, you know, it's prepared for this. It knows that this is going to be happening. There's ways to recover and things of that nature. So we're currently looking, there's a Jack Raid coming down. We got 4 security on Francis' side and what looks to be 6 on Jake's side. And we see a Lilithmon Chaos mode coming down here, which is actually going to delete TK Takaishi. And just trying to figure out exactly how much memory there is here. I'm sure they'll figure it out in a moment. Lilithmon Chaos mode, obviously something we see quite a lot. And when it comes down, will allow you to bump a tamer, which you don't see much that can bump tamers. This absolutely can. Also, for every 10 cards in your trash, you reduce the play cost by 3. And obviously, this is a deck which is, I mean, judging by what we see on the field, there must be 20 or 30 cards in trash at this stage. So that's going to really help. So it looks like a Phantomon fall down mode is attacking here. It's taking out an Eismon. Oh, no, sorry, we saw an attack into the security, but then we used tamers to lower the power to delete it. There we go. That's what went and happened. Yeah, that Eismon had 5,000 power, so the 2 Cody Hina and the TK and carry were enough. When all 3 of those activated, -2 from each of the Cody, -1 from the Jewel Tamer, that got rid of it. We now see a Jet Sylphimon coming down, and that is going to recover a card. And if you're David here, you are very happy indeed, because as it stands at the moment, David Hubbard with his Imperial Dramon deck is right on the verge of winning this tournament. If Jake wins, that is exactly what's going to happen. And Jake seems to be in control in this first game. There's 2 security remaining on Francis's side. We see Jet Sylphimon poking against very free security. Now there's 2 security. We see another Analog Boy coming down. Oh, there are some spicy choices there. Looks like a Creepymon and a Lilithmon, so there's nice things to go there. So as it stands at the moment, Jake Holt really does seem to be in control of this game. We've actually got a couple of yellow Digimon sticking on the field, which is not what we see from these yellow hybrid decks very often at all. But that is exactly what's happening here. So, yeah, this is going quite nicely. But, of course, Francis has that Lilithmon Chaos mode on the board. It looks like we're pulling a Creepymon here. So it's going to be interesting to see if that can come into play, what they can do with that. Creepymon, of course, you know, big 11,000 power, level 6. Also got a little bit of milling going on. Probably not enough to affect the game, but still enough to get really annoying for Jake. So Jake here at this stage, potentially, when it goes back to Jake's turn, potentially with a, okay, so we see a Wyvern's Breath coming down here, and that actually takes it down. Lilithmon Chaos mode goes down, leaves Francis with just an Ogremon on the field, and this is not looking good for Francis in this particular round. Jake's deck is doing exactly what he wants it to here. We've got a Jet Sylphimon on the board. We've got an Aphanamon fall down mode on the board. We've got 3 Tamers ready to go. We've got a Cupidmon potentially ready to Digivolve. Francis here needs to start getting rid of some of those Digimon. It's starting to get rid of some of those security, because if I'm seeing this correctly, there are 7 security on Jake's side. So Francis is down to 2 security, and Jake's got 2 more than he began with. That's not an ideal situation for Francis. I mean, it's exactly what Jake's looking to do, and it looks like we see a hard cast of your Lilithmon here. Do remember, of course, like I say, Lilithmon, the cost is reduced by 3 for every 10 cards in your trash. So presuming there are 30, we're talking about a 9 cost. And then we actually see a Digivolution up into Lilithmon here. Grabs a couple of option cards back, including a Jack Raid, which, with all the cards in the... looking at all of the cards in there, and just, you know, getting a lot of memory back from there and from the Lilithmon there as well. So yeah, this is looking quite tidy. Of course, there is always a possibility, you know, this purple deck can deck out. It's not something we see very often. It really is not something we see much in the game, but it is possible that we could see an actual deck out here. It's not something we see very much, but it is something that remains a possibility, and it looks like that's where Francis is really going here. Now, is that a Magna Kidmon we see hitting the board here? I think that might be a Magna Kidmon. It's got security attack +1. Let's use an option card, memory cost of 7 or less for free. I think that's what we're looking at. It's hard to see these cards upside down sometimes. No. No, I don't think it is. We'll get some confirmation on that one. Regardless, Jake is getting kind of low in his deck. So maybe, and it really is a bit of a rush here. We really don't see much deck out in Digimon at all. It's not something we see very much, but it could be. This could be the win condition we end up seeing here. So, yeah. Oh, it's Avenge Kidmon. There we go. That took me far too long to actually figure out. Look, it's hard to read some of these cards upside down. It's not a card we've seen on the stream so far today. I am going to forgive myself. It's clearly Avenge Kidmon. I apologize. We got there in the end, ladies and gentlemen. We got there in the end. This is what happens when we get to round 7 of a big tournament and somebody pulls out a tech I was not expecting, all right? These things happen. That reduces the memory cost for 1 by each option card in your opponent's trash. And when you play, you return all 3 Musketeers and all option cards from both players' trash to the bottom of their decks. If 7 or more were returned, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3 Musketeers or 8,000 DP or less. We got there in the end, ladies and gentlemen. We got there in the end. So we do see an Infanimon fall down mode here, and really for Jake, it's just a question of, can we get rid of those last 2 security cards while you've still got some cards in your deck? Now, there's only 2 security cards left. We've got an Infanimon fall down mode in the active. We've got a Patamon sitting there in the breeding area ready to come out. And of course, there's a Tamer on the board. And whenever there's a Tamer on the board, there's always a possibility that you can just whack it up into a Kazemon or a Zephyrmon and then just go ahead and attack and go from that regard. It's possible. That is absolutely possible. So we do see the attack of a Infanimon fall down mode. It is Eismon. There is 1 card remaining. In theory, Jake could win the game next turn. That is a possibility. If we see, though, if we see both these Digimon stick in, and the Patamon can hide in the raising area till next turn, but if the Infanimon fall down mode sticks, we could see a win next turn from Jake, although I'd be willing to believe that Francis is going to try and do something to stop that. So, where are we going with this? What's Francis's play? And clearly, if Francis is going after deck out, which at this stage you've got to think is probably what he's doing, then it's really just trying to get rid of those Digimon. Trying to get rid of all the options for Jake. Jake can still win next turn with just Kazemon or a Zephyrmon and that Patamon coming out of the raising area. That's absolutely a possibility. And remember, the tournament hangs in the balance here. If Francis wins, we're going to round 8. Francis plays David for, to decide who wins. If Francis loses, David just wins the entire tournament. That's how important this game is at this stage. This is one of 2 games remaining that's going to decide the outcome of this tournament. So, what are we looking at? Lots of decisions to be made here from Francis. He only started the turn with 1 memory. Now, we do see an attack here. And it looks like we're drawing, so it looks like we end up getting deleted. But drawing cards, looking for some more options. Yeah, so the Eismon just literally attacked into a Digimon, knowing it was going to get deleted just to try and activate the deletion skill, which seemed to work. We see a double Jack raid here, and it seems there must be 40 cards in the trash at this stage, because we saw Francis get 4 memory for each. We now see Lilithmon's going to get 2 of those option cards back. We got a Jack raid to get even more memory. And it looks like we've also got a calling from the darkness. Delete 1 of your Digimon and then return up to 2 purple Digimon from your trash to your hand. So there's another Jack raid. So at this stage, it seems like Francis can basically have, I think this might be the first time on stream all day we've seen somebody actually get their memory counter up to 10. It's not something we see very often, but it totally works. We see a fast call. And Francis is clearly digging here for something to try and get rid of that Digimon. It might not matter. As it stands at the moment, Jake potentially just attacks with a Patamon, gets a Kazemon or a Sylphimon, and then just goes from there. So we just see memory after memory after memory coming out here. We then see a Lilithmon Chaos mode coming out, and that is, and what's the target here on this one? It's going to go after something. There are 2 Tamers on the field. That is really important. Jake could well need one of those to finish out the game. We see Cody Hina going down. Probably the sensible choice. They've both basically got the same skill, but Cody Hina minuses 2,000, TK and Carry only minuses 1. We now see Lilithmon coming back up again, and at this stage, Francis is basically deciding when the turn ends. I'm going to do whatever I want. I can play as much as I like in terms of memory, and I mean, this is kind of looping at this stage, right? We seem to be deleting lots of Digimon, getting lots of Digimon back, playing Jack Raid over and over to gain lots of memory. But at the moment, Francis hasn't actually really done anything to affect the game. Not in that regard. We still have a Phantomon on the field. We still have Patamon in the raising area. We still have a Tamer on Jake's side, and that's all it's going to take. I mean, at this stage, I would love to see Jake's hand. I'd love to know if there's a Kazamon or a Zephyrmon. Unfortunately, it's sitting on the table. We have no look at it. But that could potentially decide the game. Francis has only got one card left. So we do see just more memory being gained here. Then there's a second Lilithmon coming out. This could be big. Now we're rolling, ladies and gentlemen. And there's all this Lubin had to be going there somewhere. Now we see a Lilithmon Chaos Mode coming out. And we've seen that before. We've seen a couple of them. And it looks like going after the Phantomon fall down mode here. You can get any Tamer or any level 6 or lower Digimon. It's still possible that Jake's got what he needs next turn. Looks like we've got a Rapidmon being played. Remember, a Phantomon fall down mode does let you play a level 4 or lower when you get deleted. So, and at this stage, Jake doesn't need like this huge Digimon. Jake's not looking for big combos, right? At this stage of the game, I think it's pretty obvious, right? Francis' deck is doing what he wants it to do. He's getting all of these option cards. Lilithmon's helping out. Lilithmon keeps coming down. Jake just needs to attack twice. It doesn't really matter what he attacks with. Just needs to attack twice. Francis here needs to keep this going, keep gaining memory, and get to the stage where it actually survives. Now, we do see a Junomon here coming down. And we see a Vengekidmon coming back. And as a turn finally passed over. And we see a Vengekidmon there just taking out that Rapidmon. But I believe at this stage, if I'm not mistaken, if we've got a hybrid in Jake's hand, I think Jake might still be able to pull this off. I think that might be possible. And clearly, like, if this game goes on much longer, Jake's not winning this game. Francis is doing just kind of like whatever he wants at this stage. So he's in attack with Patamon. Now what? Is there one more attack we can pull off here? Now, it looks like we're counting up cards for Susanumon. Is worth pointing out, I didn't make this clear enough last game. Let me make it clear now. When you put those cards back with Susanumon, you don't actually have to play Susanumon. It is a you may, not a you must. So what we saw in the previous game was a player just using Susanumon to recover those cards without actually really worrying about playing Susanumon. And if Francis is going for deck out, and let's face it, Francis has not been going after the security, so you kind of got to think deck out is the play here. What do we have? It looks like we've got... Yeah, we've got an Eden's Javelin here, which has gone after one of those Digimon on Francis' side of the board. It's gone and taken out that Lilithmon, and now we're in this situation where if Jake can attack, Jake can win. Like, if there was some recovery in Francis' deck, I feel like we would have seen it by now. So it's a very much a case of, if Jake's able to attack, then Jake's able to win. There's no security left for Francis. But at this stage, that's kind of a big if. We see that Francis using all of these cards, getting these option cards back, getting these Digimon back. We've seen Lilithmon Chaos Mode be played, I don't know, like 14 times at this stage. Feels like that. There's only actually 2 in the deck. But they keep being played, they keep coming back. And that's allowing Francis to kind of have his way. As it stands, Jake has a Tamer on the field. If we see a Lilithmon coming down to get rid of that Tamer, and let's face it, it's probably pretty likely that we will, then Jake's still going to be one attack from winning the game, but he's not actually going to have an attack there. If there's no Tamer to evolve into a hybrid, and there's no Digimon to bring out of the raising area, and there's no Digimon on the board, then there's just not going to be an attack. Maybe if Jake was playing something with Rush, it would be there, but he's not. There's nothing like a Bushy Agamon that we might see teched in. There's nothing there. So we see a Cerberusmon coming down. And we've got a Jack Ray to get a bit more memory. And, I mean, is it going to be a Lilithmon? Oh, maybe not. Yeah, and then we see Jake counting up his cards. I think it's fair to say this game is probably going to decide the matchup. Because we're almost at 15 minutes remaining, and we're not at the end of this game yet. I don't think we're getting a game 2. And remember, the whole tournament is in the balance here. If Jake wins this game, the tournament is over. Francis goes to 6-1. David Hubbard remains as the only X&O, and that is the point at which the tournament ends. If Francis wins, he's going into a showdown against David to see who will be victorious. So there's another Jack raid, gets a whole bunch more memory going on. We've still not seen that Lilithmon come down. There's the Lilithmon, and obviously there's only one target. So now Jake can't win next turn. There's no Tamer to Digivolve. There's nothing to come out of the breeding area or raising area. There's no Digimon on the board. There's nothing with Rush, I believe, in Jake's deck, unless I'm missing something obvious. So I suppose you hatch a Digi-Egg, you evolve it, and you hope to survive. But of course, Creepymon's coming down. Creepymon, when attacking for every 10 cards in trash, you discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. And there are many cards in trash. So the good news for Jake is that we've got this Salamon on the board. And Salamon is out. And next turn, Salamon can come out the raising area and attack and will win the game. And Salamon is protected. The bad news is, I mean, depending on how many cards are remaining in Jake's deck, we could see Creepymon just end the game. I'd love to know how many cards are in Jake's deck right now. Creepymon, I think, will mill 12. So Jack Raid once again puts Francis right up to 12. There is Creepymon, and the attacking skill says, for every 10 cards in your trash, your opponent's card's the top card of their deck. So how many are there? I think we're going 12 here. I think there's 40 cards. No, must just be 30 cards. So that's 9. That's a lot. It's not enough. Oh, but then we see a second Creepymon, and that's going to attack again. And I think we have now found deck out. After half an hour, Francis actually finally uses Creepymon to get the deck out. That took a long time to set up, an awful long time to set up. But it looks like Francis has won game 1. And that means that if you wanted a round 8 for this tournament, it looks like you're probably going to be getting it. We're not done yet. We've got 14 minutes remaining. There's a lot of excitement about that double Creepymon going on behind me. But it looks like Francis 1 game up now. And if game 2 goes anything like that, we are not going to see, a finish to game 2, and we're going to be going into round 8. The other possibility, and this could absolutely still happen, it is possible that Jake is able to win a quick game 2, and then we tie, and that would still leave David Hubbard as the only X&O, and then that would end the tournament with David being victorious. So that's where we are in terms of the tournament. That's really important to keep in mind. Unfortunately for Jake, it's kind of sad. It's really, at this stage, with this much time remaining, the chances of Jake actually winning 2 games is incredibly slim. So Jake's got to kind of try and rush this game, try and take it to a tie to give the win to David, which is an interesting scenario. But Francis, I mean, look, I think it's fair to say, and I've been following the results of this, pretty darn closely. If we look at the top 8 from the EU regionals, the Oceania regionals, the Latin American regionals, Lilithmon Creepymon, this was not a deck that was on my radar as one of the top decks of the tournament. It's not that I've never heard of this deck or that I didn't know that Lilithmon was good. It's that this was not a deck that was on my radar. Milling deck out decks are not big in Digimon. Turns out there is one that is very good. Francis Denton could well be moving on to 7-0 with a deck. I mean, look, I've been walking the tables all day. Every time I get a minute after the stream finishes, it's full of blue-green Imperial Digimon, yellow hybrid, and a smattering of the other decks you would expect. This is not a big deck which is everywhere at the moment. So we did see Francis Egg on an analog boy out, or an analog youth, and did get an Ismon scatter mode onto the field, or at least, into the raising area. We see Jake get that delay card, that yellow memory boost, and a Cody Hina, and then we see a Cerberusmon coming up into Francis's raising area. For Jake, this game has got to be about speed. You cannot play one of those yellow hybrid games where you keep recovering and you poke away. And recovery's not that big in this game. We saw in game one, Francis did not really care about the security. Jake kept recovering a little bit with Jet Silphimon, and Francis was like, yeah, cool, man, you do you. You have fun. You recover if you really want to. Francis was all about, let's just keep the game going, let's frustrate you, and then double Creepymon to deck out. And that's the way Francis played that game, and it worked absolutely beautifully. If Jake's going to be winning this game, it needs to be aggression. That's what we're going for here. So we do see a Cerberusmon werewolf mode coming down. There's a Cerberusmon there. And we've got a couple of analog youth now having hit the field. And it looks like, I mean, if you look at this game compared to the first one, we're looking at pretty much a mirror image from Francis here. It's all about building this up. We obviously see the Cerberusmon going away. You have to in order to play the Cerberusmon werewolf mode without giving up all that memory. And at some point, maybe this turn, maybe next turn, we're going to see Cerberusmon turn into a Lilithmon. And then we're going to start seeing some item cards get looped, or some option cards get looped. And we're going to see Lilithmon coming down, getting rid of all of those tamers. And we're going to start seeing Jack Raid, giving Francis essentially infinite memory. And by the time we got to the last couple turns of that last game, Francis basically had infinite memory. Like, there were some turns, there were literally multiple times in the same turn, Francis would go up to 10 memory remaining. It's ridiculous. But that's the way the deck is made. Jake, for his part, he's got 3 tamers out. That's a very good start. Was not able to get the evolution onto the Cupimon, which could be a big deal. That's potentially, you know, an attack coming out a turn later, which could end up being a difference in the game at this stage, which is not what you're looking for. We do see a yellow memory boost coming down. But the longer this game goes on, the more it just looks like this game is going to end without a winner. And Francis is going to take a 1-0 victory and push us into round number 8. That's what it looks like we're heading towards at the moment. No guarantee, of course, but that is where it looks like we're headed. So, we see Gazamon hitting the field. Can't gain memory other than by tamer effects. Jake can't. We've got a couple of analog boy out. We now see a Witchmon coming down. Just going up through the evolution stages there. And then we see a Cerberusmon coming down. And then we see a Cerberusmon werewolf mode coming down. Getting that level 5 straight out onto the board. Lovely little trick there. We see it used quite a lot. Get into your Cerberusmon, then you get to play the Werewolfmon for essentially 0 memory. And you've got Rush, although Francis seems to have no real interest in attacking with them. That's not really what the goal is here. The goal is just, let's get set up. Let's build up my trash. Let's get these option cards in place so I can start using Lilithmon and Jack Raid to build up my memory. I can start using Lilithmon to loop these item cards. I can start using Loosemon Chaos Mode to go after your Tamers and your Digimon. And then at some point, Creepymon's going to come down. Although, to be honest with you, 8 minutes left in this game. I'm not expecting to see Creepymon this game. Frankly, I'm not expecting this game to go on long enough. Now, we do see a Jack Raid for much less effect, I'm afraid. Sorry. But if Jake's going to turn this around, it's going to need to be quick. Because honestly, right, Jake was a person who needed to really pop out into a big win here, needed to get that fast start, and it's really all on Francis at this stage. Francis has just jumped out. Now, we do see Dead or Alive coming down, a very expensive card, but it's going to allow you to play that Loosemon Chaos Mode. And that's going to allow you to do some damage. You play a purple level 5 from your trash for free, or if you've got 10 or more cards in your trash, it can be a Loosemon instead. Or a Loosemon Chaos Mode. It's Loosemon in the name. That's what's important. So that comes down here. And Francis's deck just seems to be doing what it's trying to do. Jake here, all he can really hope for is, can I get enough Digimon out to ping at that security? It's not about building up. It's not about recovery. It's not about getting your Phantomon fall down mode or any of that. Well, the recovery's fine. It's about, can I attack into your security, ping some of them off, hopefully survive a couple, and can I get enough out there to win the game? Because we've only got like 7 minutes left of this game, plus 5 minutes or 3 turns. But Francis, having won game 1, is perfectly content to just let this play out. They know that they've got this whole match on lockdown. They know the only way they lose this match is if Jake is able to take all the security. And we actually saw in the last game, Jake took all the security. Jake was just a single attack away from winning the game. But couldn't do it. You know, we saw multiple Lilithmon Chaos Mode come down. Then we saw multiple Creepymon. And that was, unfortunately, the end of the game for Jake. So, where are we going on this one? Now we see a Jack Raid coming down, getting extra memory. Of course, Lilithmon gives even more. We see Eismon Scatter Mode coming out into the raising area, being digivolved up there. And we finally pass a turn back over to Jake with 1 memory, although Cody Hina puts it up to 2. So, no security taken for Jake yet. Francis is still sitting on 5 security. And Jake needs to try and get rid of some of them. Needs to try and get rid of all of them, honestly. What's the play? He's got Jet Sylphimon. That Salamon is not ready to come out of the raising area, it looks like. Now, we do see another delay coming down. The problem for Jake is, Jake's playing this game very well for a yellow hybrid deck. You've got this couple of delay cards, you've got Jet Sylphimon, you've got a Tamer ready to digivolve, you've got a Salamon in the raising area. You've got everything you need to set up and play this game. The problem is, this isn't your average game. You got 5 minutes remaining and you have got to win the game. You're 1 game down. Jake has got to win this game. And as it stands at the moment, the way his board's looking is not set up to try and win this game. It's set up to win a longer game, but this is not a longer game. It's a 5-minute game. So now we see Jack Raid coming down. It gets boosted by Lilithmon. So that puts him up to 4 memory. We now see a Junimon coming down. That lets you grab a card. Let's trash some. This is just everything that Francis is looking for. Francis's board is starting to look beautiful. You've got the Junimon, you've got the Lilithmon, you've got a couple of other Digimon, you've got the Gazamon coming back into hand there. That's going to stop you gaining memory other than by Tamer effects, which isn't hugely relevant in this matchup, but still, it's nice to have. And Francis here doesn't even need to win. And Francis isn't going to win, right? If Francis's sole game plan, and it really seems to be, is I'm going to deck you out eventually with Creepymon, there's no way Francis wins this game. But Francis knows this. And here's the other thing. If Francis is 6-0 with this deck, that means that Francis is really not losing very much. Because you can't lose a long game 1 and still end up with a record with 6 wins and no ties when you're playing a deck like this. It means Francis is basically winning, and I'm going to have to ask this after the conclusion of this game. Oh, and it looks like Jake does extend the hand. Are we over? Are we done? Has Jake conceded? Yeah, Jake has conceded. So Francis is making us play 1 more round of this tournament. Francis goes to 7-0, as is David Hubbard, and we are going to have 2 7-0 players. And there's something kind of beautiful about that. Having 2 7-0 players, and apparently it was 2-1 maybe. Regardless, we're going to have 2 7-0 players, and they are going to be playing to see who takes home the entire tournament. That's going to be kind of fun. We know who the players are. We know who the decks are. We've not got long until the next round kicks off. So go grab yourselves a nice cold beverage, grab yourself a snack, but don't go far, because we're going to be back with a very exciting last round very quickly indeed. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the 8th and final round from the Digimon Regional Championships here at the NEC, just outside Birmingham in the UK. We've got 2 players left. They are both undefeated. One of them, and they don't have to take a loss, we could have a tie, but one of them's going to take a loss, and we are going to crown ourselves a winner. And what we've got here are 2 very, very different decks. We've got David Hubbard coming in with the Imperial Digimon deck that was on everybody's radar, one of the real top choices to the tournament, one that we were all expecting. And we've got Francis, who I think is fair to say has brought something a little bit less expected. We've got this Lilithmon loop with Creepymon, and it's legitimately the first proper deck-out deck I've seen. It is not the kind of deck we are expecting to see. It is not a deck anyone really had on their radar coming into this tournament, and yet it's sitting here at 7-0 as one of the only 2 decks that can actually go ahead and win the tournament. It's not something we expected. but it's absolutely something that we could end up seeing. So both the players are seated. It looks like we're going to be starting very, very shortly indeed. And here, we saw this kind of a little bit in the last round. It looks like the matchup, basically is going to be coming down to, are we able to see David rush ahead and do what this Imperial Digimon deck does and really take a lot of prizes very quickly? We have seen Imperial Digimon smash this tournament. We have seen some decks win very, very quickly. That's what it's going to be looking to do. Francis wants a longer game. You don't win quick games by deck out. And Francis, like I say, it's not the kind of thing we usually see in Digimon. It's very, very unusual. But it is an actual deck out deck. An actual deck that aims to win by decking out your opponent. That takes a very long time in Digimon. But also there's things in the deck like Jack Raid, like that Magna Kidmon, etc. Sorry, Avenge Kidmon, that really do seem to be geared towards, all right, let's play a longer game. Let's both get close to decking out. Although, of course, we know Francis has got tricks in his deck. That means he's never going to be decking out. He can recover cards. He can make sure there will be no deck out in his decks. Only his opponent can deck out. And that's basically where we are in this matchup. It's very similar to the previous matchup. The question is David going to be able to rush ahead and take enough security and go ahead and win quickly? Or is Francis going to be able to prolong this game, wipe the board, and just force his opponent to deck out with Creepymon? And that's basically where we go. I mean, I do need to say, shout out to Francis here for bringing this deck because, look, I know we're going to have rogue decks on stream. We're going to have unexpected decks on stream. I didn't expect to see him at 6-0. I wasn't prepared for this deck to be at 6-0. And I'm willing to bet most of you weren't either. So, yeah. Let's go to the game. I think we're ready to go. I'm ready when they are. No, we're not quite ready yet. We're not going to be starting yet. We'll be starting soon, don't worry. So yeah, so Francis brought this deck, and I had a chat to some of Francis's friends between the last round and this round. And essentially, this is Francis's baby. Apparently has been playing some version of Lilithmon, essentially since Lilithmon came out. Perfecting this deck, playing around with it, sorting out this loop, making sure that this deck can be as good as possible and as polished as possible. And we've ended up here. Now, obviously, Creepymon, if I remember correctly, Creepymon was new in BT8. So, although Lilithmon's been around, Lilithmon was actually in Booster 1.0. It's one of the very few decks in BT or cards in BT3 that actually made its way into our first set in Booster 1.0. It's been around for as long, in English at least, as the game has been around. And it's had some success. There was that brief period where everyone went, hang on a second, Lilithmon Loop is a thing. Let's loop some option cards. And it was really good. Lilithmon's really fallen off. And Creepymon came out in BT8, the first Digimon. And look, I said this myself. Yes, Creepymon can mill. But the kind of format we've got at the moment and the kind of decks we've got at the moment really tell us that Creepymon mill is not that much of a thing. We've not got a format that's set up for Creepymon mill. Maybe we're wrong about that. I mean, Francis clearly thinks we're wrong about that. And Francis is one of only 2 players sitting at 7-0 in this tournament. So I think there's a decent chance that Francis has, called our bluff quite nicely on that. And that actually, yeah, this is a deck which has got a bit of staying power. Of course, there is the possibility after this tournament, and get ready for this, what if everyone else decides this is a really good idea? Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. Things happen at tournaments, all of that. So yeah, so this Lilithmon, Creepymon deck, it kind of came out of nowhere, and it's kind of interesting. Now, what happens if everyone starts playing this deck? What if the meta goes in this direction? What if this becomes, the next in vogue deck that everybody starts playing? What if we've all got to deal with this for several rounds at tournaments going forward? Have you thought about that? As for David, it's Imperial Digimon. And it's what we see, we had a mirror match of it round 1, and we've been going for this the whole way. It's still here. It's still doing well. So we're going to take a quick little break here while we figure out how we're going to be starting this game, resolve a couple of issues, and then we're going to be back with the final. And I'm just going to say it, it's going to be a good one. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the UK Games Expo and the Digimon Regional Championships. We were supposed to have round 8 here to decide your winner. Unfortunately, one of the players has been disqualified, and that means that Francis Denton is going to be your regional champion with this really weird Lilithmon Creepymon deck list that we did get to see in all its glory in the previous round. It's a phenomenal deck, a really interesting deck, one we really weren't expecting. It's now a regional winning deck, so it's going to be really interesting to see moving forward, whether this deck is a flash in the pan from one player who is just that good with the deck, or whether it is in fact the deck which is here to stay, and we're going to see a whole bunch of copycats. It's not an easy deck to play though, so that's going to be an interesting one. For now, thank you very much from all of us here for watching, for joining in on the tournament, for enjoying the Digimon action, and hopefully we'll be back soon with more lovely Digimon action. Look after yourselves till next time, and thank you very much for watching.